Hey guys, what is happening? Niad here with Film Comics Explained. We are back for the second chapter of our run into the thing from another world. When we had left, McCready had awoken on a Japanese whaling vessel. The doctors had informed him that his friend had brought him there before going back for the other survivors. Upon hearing this, McCready had taken off with the ship's helicopter in search of Charles. The helicopter ran out of fuel, causing him to crash land back at the research base. McCready then went through burning all the bodies that he could find that were infected. He even blew up the original thing before finding another body, but before he could dispose of it, a Navy SEAL team began to parachute around him. From their point of view, it seems as though Mac had gone crazy and killed his co-workers. One of them reached over the infected body and were pushed away by McCready, who was then knocked out. We returned to find two Navy SEALs standing over the mutated body. One of them asks what it is, and the other replies by saying he didn't know, before saying their bio team will figure it out. McCready gets back up and the captain tells one of the men to shoot him if he gets frisky again. Once they reach a vantage point, they begin to make a perimeter for the incoming helo. The captain orders two of them, Leslie and Pybus, to watch their flanks, and asks Masha to uncuff McCready, but keep an eye on him. They pop a green flare while they wait for the helicopter to reach them. We see it make its approach, and the pilot tells them to jump in and close it up so they can leave. One of the men in front of Pybus turns back to notice something coming out of his mouth. Pybus then opens fire at him, riddling him with bullets. We see some thin tentacles have also begun to come out of Pybus's mask. We see the captain yelling at them to get down, as the bullets rip through Leslie and penetrate the helicopter. One of the shots hits the tail rotor and the pilot informs them that they are going down. McCready runs in and takes the handgun off the fallen soldier. The commander asks him what is going on, and McCready replies by saying, "Welcome to the real world, Erskine. That's the thing that came from the Norwegian station." We can see that the mutated soldier is shooting the others to shreds. McCready opens fire on it several times. The mutated soldier collapses and parts of his body continue to writhe and twitch. Erskine moves towards it to finish him off, and McCready tells him to stay back, just as the face of the infected splits in half and releases more bloody tentacles. We see the thing emerge from the body. Erskine yells for the Mother of God as he trips over and opens fire on it. McCready tells him to take cover, and we see Erskine keeps firing. Eventually, he is able to shoot one of the explosives that were attached to the body, causing the thing to blow up. McCready then moves towards Erskine and grabs him by the collar as he says, "That's what you're up against, Commander. That thing could be inside anyone or any living thing." He then tells him that they need to tend to the wounded. The commander informs him that the SATCOM is history and asks about the radio in the helicopter. McCready tells him to forget it and that it is fried as we see him recover one of the pilot's bodies. Erskine then asks one of his wounded men if they got off a mayday before they crashed, and he tells him that there wasn't any time. The sun has begun to go down and they are going to freeze to death unless they can get to help or help can get to them. The commander asks him about the other helicopter, and McCready tells him that it hit the ground hard as he was flying on fumes. He suggests that they saw some gasoline to use the tractors to escape, but McCready tells him that he used all the gasoline and didn't mind dying. Erskine asks him if he is out of his mind, and McCready tells him that he is a slow learner. He goes on to say that that thing doesn't have to be alive to contaminate people. Its remains can essentially infect a new organism. Erskine wants to get his wounded men to help, but McCready disagrees. He reminds him that his team was only here for 20 minutes before being infected, suggesting that if it were to get to a populated area, it will reproduce by the thousands. He goes on to say that it will be -50 in an hour, and that thing will die here along with them. We can see that Erskine is annoyed and a bit scared of the prospect of dying. He pulls the gun on McCready before telling him that he plans to stay alive. He informs him that there is an Argentine research station 20 clicks from their current location with a doctor. He says that if they move all night, they might make it. McCready tells him to go to hell, and Erskine fires a warning shot at his feet. He tells him that the next one goes through his heart, before ordering McCready to get the ponchos of his men to make litters. We see them carrying the bodies over a hill, as they both drag a body each through the harsh and unforgiving snow. Erskine tells McCready that no one had told him to stop, and Mac informs him that there is no point going on with the one he was carrying, as he was dead now. McCready marks the location and indicates that someone can come back and burn the body. Erskine tells him that he is really going all the way with this alien stuff. Even with everything that he has seen, he does not believe him. MacReady simply tells him to believe it, as it is the realest goddamn thing in his life. Erskine pulls a compass out, and MacReady tells the idiot that it isn't going to work this close to the pole. He asks him if the pass is behind them, and MacReady refuses to tell him the right way. Erskine is determined to keep going, and estimates an hour or two before they see the lights of the other camp. MacReady tells him that's if he picked the right way, before Erskine insists that break time is over. We are told the night on the Antarctic Peninsula is nothing like the gentle space between days. Even the stars cower in ferocious, mind-numbing shadow. Hours pass like months, like time spent in a nightmare. In this place, dawn does not bring hope, only the bitter sting of disappointment. They reach a cliff, and MacReady informs him that he was going in the right direction, but had picked the wrong pass. He tells him that it looks like they both lose. Erskine is furious, and we see him punch MacReady as he tells him that he knew the right way and let them get lost anyway. MacReady immediately elbows him to the jaw, discombobulating him before reaching for his gun. MacReady points the gun at Erskine before saying he didn't have a choice. Erskine replies by telling him that it is beginning to make sense to him now. MacReady had said that that thing could sleep in the ice, suggesting that might be why MacReady wants them to freeze to death, so that he can sleep and wait for the rescue party. We see the soldier reach for his knife. MacReady asks him not to do anything stupid. We then hear a large motor clanking behind them, causing him to turn around. We see some men talking in Argentinian as they hop out of the tractor. One of them tells MacReady and Erskine to put the weapon down in English. MacReady is surprised to hear this. We see the man remove his hood to reveal that it is Childs. Mac reaches over and calls him a son of a bitch who left him to die on the ice. Erskine then hits him from behind, incapacitating him. He tells Childs that his friend is out of his mind, and he replies by saying that he can get a little tense sometimes. Erskine then begins to cuff MacReady as he tells the others that he is a lieutenant in the US Navy. He informs them that one of his men in the litter were wounded and needed medical assistance. They all tell him that they can take him to their hospital, and when they ask him about MacReady, Erskine informs them that he is now his prisoner. Childs jokes around and tells Mac that he'd look better, and he responds by saying that he had been having a bad week. Mac then asks Childs how he got there. He explains that they were at the station. Mac had essentially passed out, and he took him onto the ice to be found, while he went back to burn the bodies. Childs had gotten lost in the storm, which is when the Argentinians found him and brought him in. MacReady says it's bullshit and asks how he can be so sure that he is not contaminated. Childs replies by saying, "You're still alive." When he asks him what happened back at the station, MacReady explains that Superman and his friends flew out of nowhere. One of his men touched the thing and then began to shoot down their ride. Childs then asks what the chance was that the Navy SEAL and his wounded man were contaminated. Mac questions why he is asking him, and Childs tells him it's because if they are infected, he is too. Once they arrive and hop out of the helicopter, MacReady is in total shock at what he sees below. There is a massive camp here. He tries to tell Childs that he can't let them go in there. He goes on to say that if those people become contaminated, but is interrupted by Childs, who tells him to relax and that it has been taken care of. One of the Argentinian pilots tells Erskine that Childs had explained what had happened at the American station. Erskine asks him how they know he is not infected, and they tell him that is precisely what they intend to find out. One of the men from the Argentinian camp informs them all that before he can allow their party to come into contact with the personnel of Campo del Sur, he must submit each of them to a medical examination. Childs informs Mac that he had told them about the blood test they had used back at the station to determine which one of them were infected. Erskine tells them that the science project will have to wait as he needs to get to a radio now. The man in charge informs him that he will be happy to let him do that after the examination. He then asks Erskine to surrender his weapon. The commander asks what the consequences were if he didn't, and we see the Argentinians all point their assault rifles at him, as their leader tells him that he really must insist. We can see some of the doctors caring for one of Erskine's men who had made it. They cut Child's thumb, and we see him pouring his blood onto a petri dish. He tells Mac there isn't going to be any surprises here. They stub his blood with a piece of hot metal to find that he is clean. Mac is then told he is next. The Major also tells him that with the exception of Mr. Childs, he was the person who had been exposed the longest. They cut him, and do the same to reveal that he is also clean. Childs congratulates him, but Max simply tells him to go to hell. The physicians then move over to the wounded soldier on the gurney. They prick his finger. Erskine asks them why they are testing him when he isn't even conscious. At that moment, we see the thing come out of his body. One of the Argentinians yells out for the Mother of God as the monstrosity, which has caught them all by surprise, begins to grow in size. And that is the end of the second chapter to The Thing from Another World. I hope you guys have been having mad fun. We'll be back with the third and final chapter of this tomorrow. Unfortunately, that's all that we have time for. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like and to subscribe to stay up to date on all my content. I'm Niat with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.